My daughter-in-law changed the locks on my house while I was at work. I'm Leopold, 72 years old, and I've been a janitor at Stanford for 45 years. When I came home Tuesday evening, Victoria was standing in my driveway with new keys, telling me I was embarrassing and needed to move to a nursing home. She even live-streamed the whole thing to her Instagram followers. 1,500 people watched her call me pathetic and throw my belongings onto the lawn. The comments were cheering her on for setting boundaries and choosing herself first. But here's what Victoria didn't know when she hit that live button. Here's what she never bothered to research before humiliating a 72-year-old man in front of the internet. Some secrets are worth $50 million. If you're watching this, hit subscribe because this story is about to get very interesting. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because by morning, people all over the world were talking about what happened next. Victoria thought she was upgrading her living situation. She had no idea she was about to downgrade her entire life. Let me back up 2 years, when the disrespect started small and grew into something ugly. Victoria Sterling joined our family when she married my son Declan in 2022. She's a VP of Corporate Acquisitions at Megacorp Industries, makes $400,000 a year, and never lets you forget it. From day one, she made it clear that having a janitor for a father-in-law didn't fit her image. The first incident happened at their housewarming party. I was helping serve drinks when Victoria introduced me to her colleagues. "This is Declan's father," she said, her voice dropping. "He does maintenance at the university." Not that I was a janitor with 43 years of service. Not that I'd raised her husband alone after his mother died. Just maintenance. Her friend laughed. "Oh, that's so authentic. Very blue-collar chic." I excused myself to Catherine's garden. My wife planted 15 varieties of roses back in '98. Victoria wanted to pave it over for a Tesla charging station. The second incident was Christmas dinner last year. Victoria announced over prime rib that she'd been researching senior living communities for me. She had brochures, color photos of smiling elderly people playing shuffleboard. "It's not fair to Leopold to burden him with home ownership at his age," she told Declan. "And frankly, we need the space for when we start our family." What she didn't know was that I'd already contributed $85,000 to their home renovations. The new kitchen cabinets? My money. The hardwood floors? My money. The smart home system Victoria loved, showing off to friends? My money. But I kept those receipts private. Declan knew, but Victoria never asked where the money came from. She just assumed his Stanford software architect's salary covered everything. The daily humiliations were smaller, but constant. I ate dinner alone in the breakfast nook, while they used the formal dining room. When Victoria had guests over, I was encouraged to stay in my room. She'd installed a Ring doorbell specifically to screen visitors, making sure none of my work friends would embarrass her. Last month, she started leaving real estate magazines on my bedside table. Houses in Modesto, Stockton, places where my Social Security could afford rent. The message was clear. It's time to go. But Victoria made one crucial mistake. She never wondered how a janitor could afford to help with $85,000 in renovations. She never asked about the flip phone that rang at odd hours with calls from people who addressed me as Mr. Thornton. And she never questioned why I had a Stanford email address that wasn't just for maintenance requests. Instead, she saw the blue uniform, the work boots, the calloused hands, and decided she knew everything about me. Tuesday afternoon, she decided to act on that assumption. Declan was in Seattle on business, and Victoria saw her opportunity. I came home from my shift to find a locksmith's van in the driveway, and Victoria directing 2 men as they changed every lock on the house. "Leopold," she said, not looking up from her phone, "this isn't working anymore. I've arranged temporary housing for you at the Sunset Manor. It's very nice. You'll like the people there." The locksmith looked uncomfortable. "Ma'am, does he live here? We usually need all residents to—" "He's not a resident," Victoria cut him off. "He's a guest who overstayed his welcome." That's when I pulled out my phone and made that call to Cyrus. Victoria was too busy documenting the moment for social media to pay attention, but she should have listened more carefully to my side of that conversation. Because some phone calls change everything. Standing on that porch, watching my belongings get sorted into cardboard boxes, I realized what I'd lose if I stayed silent. This wasn't just about a house. This was about Catherine's memory, 40 years of building a life, and the complete erasure of my dignity. Victoria had already started erasing me from family photos on the mantelpiece, replacing them with her professional headshots and vacation pictures from Napa. But the real stakes became clear when Victoria's phone rang while she supervised the lock changing. She answered with her business voice. Victoria Sterling, Megacorp Acquisitions. Yes, the Innovate Tech deal is moving forward as planned. 50 million, final signatures Thursday. Of course I'll be there for the closing. She hung up and smiled at her phone. This was her big moment. The Innovate Tech Solutions acquisition would make her career. She'd been working on it for 8 months, calling it her pathway to senior VP. The company made educational software, had been profitable for 25 years, and Megacorp wanted their client base. Victoria didn't know that while she was celebrating her professional triumph, she was also orchestrating her professional destruction. You see, she'd done her research on Innovate Tech's founders. She knew about the young Stanford computer science graduates who started the company in 1995. She knew about their innovative approach to educational software. She knew about their impressive profit margins and client retention. What she didn't research was the company's angel investors. My phone buzzed again, a text from Professor Cyrus Mitchell. Leo, the acquisition papers came through. They need your signature by Thursday. Should I come by tonight? I looked at Victoria, who was now live streaming on Instagram. 1,200 viewers watching her spring cleaning project. Comments flowing in, mostly supportive of her setting boundaries and prioritizing mental health. She's handling this so well, one comment read. Sometimes you have to choose yourself, read another. Victoria basked in the validation. She was the heroine of her own story, the strong woman who wouldn't let family obligation hold her back from success. If I stayed silent, if I let her force me into Sunset Manor, I wouldn't just lose my home. I'd lose the roses Catherine planted. I'd lose the workshop where I'd taught Declan to use tools. I'd lose the kitchen where we'd shared 40 years of family dinners. But more than that, I'd validate her belief that people like me don't matter. That blue-collar workers exist to be managed, moved, and dismissed when convenient. That respect is earned through job titles and salary figures, not through character and contribution. Victoria was counting on my silence. She was counting on my politeness, my reluctance to cause family drama. She believed that at 72, I was too tired, too old, too set in my ways to fight back. She was about to learn that sometimes the quietest people are simply choosing their moment to speak. The locksmith finished installing the new deadbolt. Victoria tipped him $50 and asked him to wait while she got her Instagram followers a better angle of me collecting my belongings. That's when Professor Mitchell's car pulled into the driveway. Victoria looked up from her phone as the silver Lexus parked behind the locksmith's van. Professor Cyrus Mitchell stepped out, wearing his usual tweed jacket despite the warm September weather. He'd been my friend for 23 years, ever since I helped him move into his office after his divorce. "Leopold?" Cyrus called. "Is everything all right?" Victoria's live stream was still running. She lowered her phone but kept recording. "Everything's fine," Victoria said before I could answer. "Just some family reorganization." Cyrus looked at the boxes on the lawn, then at the locksmith packing his tools. His expression darkened. "Victoria, isn't it?" Cyrus said. "We met at Declan's wedding." "Dr. Mitchell, yes. Leopold was just telling us how excited he is about his new living arrangement." I hadn't told her anything of the sort, but Victoria was performing for her audience now. 1,200 viewers had become 1,500. The comments were coming faster. "Who's the old guy in the fancy car? Plot twist. This is getting interesting." Victoria felt confident. After all, what could a retired professor do? This was her house, her rules, her moment of empowerment. "Leopold," Victoria continued, "Dr. Mitchell probably wants to say goodbye before you move to Sunset Manor." "Actually," Cyrus said quietly, "I'm here about some paperwork that needs Leopold's signature." "What paperwork?" Cyrus glanced at me. I nodded once. "Innovate Tech acquisition documents." Victoria laughed. I think you're confused. I'm handling the Innovate Tech acquisition for Megacorp. Leopold has nothing to do with that deal. Doesn't he? The simple question hung in the air. Victoria's smile flickered. On her live stream, someone commented, "Why is she turning red?" No, he doesn't. Leopold is a janitor. He mops floors. Among other things, yes. Victoria's confidence was slipping. What other things? Well, for starters, he's been funding student entrepreneurs at Stanford for 30 years. Small investments, usually $5,000 to $10,000. He's very modest about it. That's impossible. He doesn't have that kind of money. Cyrus pulled an envelope from his jacket. Victoria, how much research did you do on Innovate Tech's founding investors? All of it. I know everything about that company. Do you know about the angel investor who provided the initial $25,000 seed funding? Victoria's face went pale. The live stream comments were getting excited. She looks scared now. What's in the envelope? Drama incoming. The angel investor was a Stanford employee, Cyrus continued, someone who believed in supporting student innovation, someone who saw potential where others saw just another software startup. Victoria's voice came out as a whisper. Who? Cyrus looked at me. I stepped forward, my voice calm and steady. That would be me, Victoria. The locksmith stopped loading his van. Victoria's phone nearly slipped from her hand. 1,500 viewers became 1,700 as word spread through social media. You're lying. The original incorporation documents are public record, filed March 15, 1995. Leopold Thornton, angel investor, 35% equity stake. Victoria did quick math in her head. 35% of $50 million, $17.5 million. That's impossible. You're a janitor. I am a janitor, I said quietly. I've also been an investor for 30 years. I've funded 23 successful startups with money I saved from 45 years of honest work. Most people underestimate what's possible when you live modestly and invest wisely. Victoria looked around desperately. The locksmith was staring. The neighbors had come out to watch. Her live stream was exploding with comments she couldn't keep up with. But you mop floors. Yes, I also own a third of the company you're trying to buy. That's when Victoria realized what she'd done. Victoria's mind was racing. She ended the live stream abruptly, but not before 1,800 viewers had witnessed the conversation. Screenshots were already circulating on social media. This is some kind of joke, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Cyrus handed me the envelope. The acquisition papers came through this afternoon. Megacorp's offer is contingent on all founding partners agreeing to the sale terms. Your signature is required by Thursday. Victoria grabbed the papers from my hands before I could open them. Her MBA training kicked in as she scanned the legal documents. Her face went white. Leopold Thornton, founding partner, 35% equity. She looked up. This can't be real. It's been real for 28 years, I said. You just never bothered to ask. Victoria's phone was buzzing with notifications. Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, the clips from her live stream were spreading, but she was too focused on the documents to notice. Why didn't you say anything? When I was working on this deal for months, why didn't you tell me you were involved? You never asked about my life beyond what you could see, I replied. You saw the uniform and decided that was all there was. Cyrus checked his watch. Leopold, we should discuss the acquisition terms. There are some concerning clauses about company reputation and ethical standards that Megacorp wants to include. That got Victoria's attention. As VP of Acquisitions, she'd written those clauses herself. They were standard language designed to protect Megacorp from any scandal or public relations issues that might emerge after the purchase. What kind of concerning clauses? Victoria asked. Section 12.7, Cyrus said. If any founding partner brings embarrassment or reputational damage to the acquired company, Megacorp reserves the right to void the acquisition and seek damages. Victoria had written that clause specifically to protect against unknown liabilities. She'd never imagined it might apply to her. But that's just standard legal language. It would never actually be invoked. My flip phone rang. I answered with my usual quiet tone. Hello, this is Leopold. Yes, I saw the video clips. No, I haven't signed anything yet. Thursday at 2 p.m.? I'll be there. I hung up. Victoria stared at me. Who was that? Edison Caldwell. Victoria's face went gray. Edison Caldwell was the CEO of Megacorp Industries. Her boss. Her boss's boss, actually. Why is Edison Caldwell calling you? Because he needs my signature on Thursday. But why does he have your number? I looked at Cyrus, who nodded encouragingly. Edison was one of my students, in a manner of speaking. Not officially. I don't teach classes, but I tutored him in calculus his sophomore year. Down in my basement workshop, 3 nights a week for a whole semester. He was failing, about to lose his scholarship. Victoria's legs felt weak. She sat down heavily on the porch steps. Edison Caldwell was in our basement? Every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from January to May, 1992. Smart kid, just needed someone to explain the concepts differently. He still sends me a Christmas card every year. The implications were crushing Victoria like a physical weight. The CEO of Megacorp, the man she'd been trying to impress for 3 years, had learned calculus in the basement of the house she'd just locked me out of. This doesn't change anything, Victoria said desperately. The acquisition will go through. You'll sign the papers. Everyone wins. That depends, I said. On what? On whether Megacorp still wants to do business with someone who just live-streamed herself illegally, evicting a founding partner from his own home. Victoria's phone buzzed with a text message, then another, and another. She looked at the screen and her face went white. The first message was from her assistant. Victoria, people are sending me videos of you on social media. What should I tell the press inquiries? The second was from Megacorp's legal department. Need to speak with you immediately regarding the Innovate Tech acquisition. The third was from Edison Caldwell himself. Victoria, we need to talk. My office, first thing tomorrow morning. Victoria looked up at me with something approaching panic. Leopold, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Maybe we can work something out. Maybe Sunset Manor isn't the right fit after all. Maybe not, I agreed. So you'll still sign the papers? I looked at the boxes of my belongings scattered across the lawn, at the new locks on the door of the house Catherine and I had bought 40 years ago, at the woman who had spent 2 years treating me like an inconvenience, was too polite to throw away until today. We'll see, I said. And that's when Victoria realized she might have just cost herself everything. Victoria's panic turned into desperate damage control. She started a new Instagram Live, but this time with a very different tone. Hey everyone, just wanted to clarify some things about earlier, she said, forcing a bright smile. There was some confusion about a family situation, but everything's worked out perfectly. Leopold is such an amazing father-in-law, and I'm so proud of his accomplishments. The comments weren't buying it. Why did you call him embarrassing? This feels fake now. She looks scared, lol. Too late for damage control. But Victoria pushed forward, her marketing background taking over. You know, I've learned so much from Leopold about humility and hidden wisdom. He's taught me that you can't judge someone by their job title. The irony wasn't lost on anyone watching. 2,000 viewers had become 3,000, and clips from both live streams were spreading across TikTok and Twitter faster than Victoria could track. Cyrus excused himself to make phone calls, leaving me alone with Victoria on the porch. The locksmith had finished and left, but the boxes of my belongings remained scattered across the front lawn like evidence of her mistake. Leopold, Victoria said, dropping the camera angle to speak privately, I think we got off on the wrong foot today. I was stressed about work, and I took it out on you. That wasn't fair. No, it wasn't. But we're family. We can work through this. I'll have the locks changed back. We'll put your stuff back where it belongs. Everything can go back to normal. I studied her face, the desperate calculation behind her eyes, the way she kept glancing at her phone as notifications continued to pile up. What about Sunset Manor? You said I'd like the people there. I was wrong. This is your home, Catherine's home. I should have respected that. And the Tesla charging station in Catherine's garden? Victoria winced. The roses can stay. They're beautiful. I don't know what I was thinking. My phone rang again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize. I answered it anyway. Hello, this is Leopold. Mr. Thornton? This is Alice Chen from Channel 7 News. We've received some very interesting video clips from social media, and we'd love to interview you about your investment portfolio and the upcoming Megacorp acquisition. Victoria went pale. Local news had picked up the story. I'll have to call you back, I said, and hung up. Victoria was typing frantically on her phone. I need to call Megacorp's PR department. We can spin this as a positive story. Humble janitor reveals investment genius or something like that. Victoria. Local media loves feel-good stories. We could even do a joint interview where I talk about how proud I am to have such a successful father-in-law. Victoria. Maybe we could get you on the morning show circuit. Good Morning America loves stories like this. Think of the positive publicity from Megacorp. Victoria, stop. She looked up from her phone. For the first time in 2 years, I had her complete attention. Do you know what embarrassment means to someone my age? I asked. I said I was sorry. I was wrong to use that word. Embarrassment means having your grandson's friends see videos of you being called pathetic by your daughter-in-law. Embarrassment means your neighbors watching you carry boxes to the curb while someone live streams it for entertainment. Victoria's face crumpled. Leopold, please. I made a mistake. A big mistake. But we can fix this. Can we? Yes, I'll do whatever it takes. I'll post an apology video. I'll make donations to your favorite charities. I'll personally replant Catherine's rose garden if you want. That's when Cyrus returned from his phone calls. His expression was grim. Leopold, I'm afraid the situation has escalated. Edison Caldwell just called me directly. Victoria jumped up. What did he say? Is the acquisition still happening? Cyrus ignored her and spoke directly to me. Edison saw the video clips. He's extremely concerned about the optics of Megacorp doing business with someone who publicly humiliated a founding partner. He's asking if you want to invoke the reputation clause. The what clause? Victoria's voice cracked. Section 12.7, I said quietly. The embarrassment clause you wrote to protect Megacorp from reputational damage. But that's for the acquired company, not for Megacorp employees. Actually, Cyrus said, consulting his notes, Edison's lawyers interpret it differently. If a Megacorp executive brings embarrassment to an acquired company's founding partners, that could constitute reputational damage under the terms you drafted. Victoria sat down hard on the porch steps. This can't be happening. There's more, Cyrus continued. Stanford's administration also saw the videos. They're not pleased that one of their long-term employees was publicly humiliated by someone claiming to own his house. I do own this house, Victoria said weakly. Actually, I said, you might want to check the deed. Catherine and I bought this house jointly in 1986. When she died, it passed to me. Declan has been paying rent, his idea to help with his inheritance taxes, but the house has always been mine. Victoria pulled out her phone with shaking hands and started scrolling through documents. This isn't happening, she whispered. Oh, but it is, I said. And Victoria, we're just getting started. At exactly 6:30 p.m., 3 more cars pulled into our driveway. The first was Declan's rental car. He'd caught the earliest flight back from Seattle. The second was a black Mercedes that Victoria didn't recognize. The third was a silver Tesla Model S that made Victoria's breath catch in her throat. Edison Caldwell stepped out of the Tesla. Declan rushed over first, taking in the boxes on the lawn and the confusion on Victoria's face. Dad, what's going on? Victoria called me crying about some kind of emergency? Your wife decided to change the locks while you were gone, I said calmly. She did what? Victoria jumped up from the porch steps. Declan, honey, there's been a huge misunderstanding. I thought I made a mistake about who your father really is. What do you mean? Who he really is? He's my father. Edison Caldwell approached our group, his presence immediately shifting the entire dynamic. At 52, he commanded respect without saying a word. Victoria instinctively straightened her posture and smoothed her hair. Mr. Caldwell, she said in her most professional voice, I wasn't expecting you. No, Edison said. I imagine you weren't. The man from the Mercedes turned out to be Megacorp's head counsel, Brielle Morrison. She carried a leather briefcase and wore an expression that suggested very bad news for someone. Edison looked around at the boxes, the locksmith's leftover materials, and Victoria's phone, which was still buzzing with media requests. "Leopold," Edison said, and his voice carried genuine warmth. "It's good to see you, though I wish it were under better circumstances." "Hello, Edison. You've done well for yourself?" "Thanks to you." Edison turned to the group. "For those who don't know, Leopold Thornton taught me more about problem solving in one semester than I learned in 4 years of business school. He saved my academic career." Victoria tried to salvage the situation. "Mr. Caldwell, I want you to know that I have tremendous respect for Leopold. This was all just a family misunderstanding that got blown out of proportion on social media." Edison studied her for a long moment. "Ms. Sterling, I've now watched 17 different videos of you live streaming the eviction of one of our acquisition partners. In one video, you specifically called him an embarrassment and said he was pathetic. I was stressed. I said things I didn't mean. You also claimed he wasn't a resident of his own home and that he was a guest who overstayed his welcome." Declan looked horrified. "Victoria, tell me you didn't actually say that." Victoria's silence was answer enough. Brielle Morrison opened her briefcase. "Ms. Sterling, we need to discuss the legal implications of your actions today." "What legal implications?" "Let's start with the live-streamed trespassing incident. You filmed yourself illegally changing locks and removing personal property. In California, that's a potential felony." Victoria's face went white. "But I live here. I'm married to Leopold's son." "Marriage doesn't grant you property rights over your father-in-law's house," Brielle continued, "especially when that father-in-law happens to be a key stakeholder in a $50 million acquisition your company is pursuing." Edison pulled out his own phone. "Leopold, I need to ask you directly. Do you want to proceed with the Megacorp acquisition?" The question hung in the air. 4,000 people were now watching Victoria's earlier live stream, which had been picked up and reshared across multiple platforms. Local news vans were starting to arrive in the neighborhood. "That depends," I said. "On what?" "On whether Megacorp truly shares the values of respect and dignity that Innovate Tech was founded on." Edison nodded slowly. "I understand your concern. What would it take for you to feel comfortable moving forward?" Victoria jumped in. "Leopold, please, I'll do anything. I'll make this right." "Victoria," I said quietly, "you live-streamed my humiliation to thousands of people. You called me pathetic. You threw my belongings on the lawn like garbage. You tried to force me into a nursing home so you could profit from selling my house. I was wrong. I know I was wrong. You were wrong about my character, but you were also wrong about my circumstances." I turned to Cyrus, who had been quietly documenting everything. "Professor Mitchell, would you please explain to everyone what Victoria missed in her research?" Cyrus cleared his throat. "Leopold has been Stanford University's most successful informal mentor for 30 years. He's funded 23 startup companies with his personal savings. His investment portfolio is currently valued at $12.8 million. Victoria sat down heavily on the porch steps. Innovate Tech was his third startup investment. He provided $25,000 in seed funding when the founders were just graduate students. That investment is now worth approximately $17.5 million. Declan stared at me in amazement. "Dad, why didn't you ever tell me?" "You never needed to know. Money isn't what makes someone valuable." "But $12.8 million is what happens when you live modestly, invest wisely, and compound returns over 30 years. Your mother and I never spent more than we needed. We put everything extra into helping young entrepreneurs." Edison smiled. "Leopold funded 3 of my classmates' startups after he finished tutoring me. 2 of them became multi-million-dollar companies." Victoria looked up from the porch steps. "So when I said you were an embarrassment to the family image, you were talking to someone whose net worth is roughly 30 times your annual salary," I said. "And when I said you didn't belong in our house, you were evicting the owner." The irony was perfect, and everyone present felt it. Victoria Sterling, VP of Corporate Acquisitions, had spent 8 months negotiating to buy a company from the man she considered beneath her social status. Brielle Morrison consulted her notes. Ms. Sterling, Megacorp's acquisition contract includes several morality and reputation clauses. Your actions today have triggered at least 3 of them. What does that mean? It means, Edison said, that as of 6 p.m. today, you're suspended pending a full investigation. The acquisition's on hold indefinitely, and depending on Leopold's decision, we may be facing a lawsuit for attempted theft and harassment. Victoria's phone slipped from her hands and clattered on the concrete. "This can't be happening," she whispered. "Oh, but it is," I said. "You wanted to change my living situation, Victoria. You succeeded, but not in the way you planned." The Channel 7 news van pulled up to the curb. Other neighbors were gathering on their lawns, drawn by the commotion. Victoria's public humiliation was about to become very, very public. "Leopold," Edison said, "what do you want to do?" I looked at my belongings scattered across the lawn, at the woman who had spent 2 years making me feel unwelcome in my own home, at my son who was finally seeing the situation clearly. "I want justice," I said, "but I want it done properly." "What does that look like?" I thought of Catherine, who always believed in second chances, but never in third ones. I thought of the 45 years I'd spent mopping floors and saving money and helping young people achieve their dreams. "It looks like consequences," I said. "Real ones." And that's when Victoria realized that her world was about to change completely. The next 2 hours unfolded like a carefully orchestrated symphony of consequences. Edison Caldwell made the first call right there on my front lawn. "Legal department? This is Edison. I need immediate termination paperwork for Victoria Sterling, employee ID 77492, effective immediately." Victoria shot up from the porch steps. "You can't fire me. I haven't been convicted of anything." "California is an at-will employment state," Brielle Morrison explained calmly. "Megacorp can terminate employees for conduct that reflects poorly on the company. Live streaming the harassment of a business partner certainly qualifies." "But the acquisition is canceled," Edison said. "Leopold, I apologize, but given the circumstances, Megacorp can no longer in good conscience pursue this deal." Victoria's legs gave out. She sat back down hard. "Edison, please let me fix this. I'll issue a public apology. I'll donate to charities. Victoria," I said quietly, "this isn't about apologies anymore." While Victoria spiraled, I made my own phone calls. The first was to Stanford's administration. "This is Leopold Thornton, employee ID 1978341. I'd like to file a formal complaint about harassment and attempted theft. Yes, I have video evidence. The individual claimed to own university employee housing and live-streamed an illegal eviction attempt." Victoria looked up sharply. "Employee housing? This isn't employee housing." "Actually," Cyrus said, "Stanford provides housing assistance to long-term employees. Leopold's mortgage has been partially subsidized through the university's retention program for 38 years. Which means," Brielle added, "that your actions today also constitute harassment of a Stanford University employee, potentially violating several state and federal laws." My second call was to the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Office. "I'd like to report an illegal entry and attempted theft at my residence. Yes, I have extensive video evidence. The perpetrator live-streamed the incident to approximately 4,000 viewers." Victoria went pale. "Leopold, please don't press charges. I'll leave peacefully. I'll never bother you again." "It's too late for that, Victoria." The media attention was escalating rapidly. Channel 7's news crew had set up on the sidewalk. A reporter from the San Jose Mercury News arrived next, followed by a blogger from TechCrunch who'd seen the story trending on social media. "Mr. Thornton," called the Channel 7 reporter, "can you confirm that you're a major investor in the company your daughter-in-law was trying to acquire?" I walked over to the news crew, still wearing my blue Stanford uniform. "I can confirm that I'm a founding investor in Innovate Tech Solutions. I can also confirm that earlier today, Ms. Sterling live-streamed herself illegally, changing the locks on my home and throwing my belongings onto the street. And the acquisition deal has been canceled due to Ms. Sterling's conduct." Victoria tried to follow me to the cameras, but Edison blocked her path. "Victoria, I strongly advise you to contact a lawyer before speaking to any media." But this is destroying my career. Your career was destroyed the moment you hit go live while committing multiple felonies. And the sheriff's deputies arrived 40 minutes later. They reviewed the video evidence on Victoria's own phone and spoke with the locksmith, who confirmed that Victoria had claimed legal ownership of the property. "Ma'am," the deputy said to Victoria, "you're under arrest for illegal entry, attempted theft, and harassment of an elderly person." Victoria's face crumpled. "This can't be happening. I'm a corporate executive. I make $400,000 a year." "Not anymore," the deputy replied, placing handcuffs on her wrists. As Victoria was loaded into the patrol car, Declan approached me with tears in his eyes. "Dad, I'm so sorry. I should have stood up to her years ago. I knew how she treated you, and I was too weak to stop it." "You were trying to keep your marriage together," I said. "I understand. But she was wrong about everything, and I let it happen." I put my hand on my son's shoulder. "Son, you can't control other people's choices. You can only control your own. What matters now is what you choose to do next." "I choose you," Declan said immediately. "I choose family, real family. Victoria and I are done." The locksmith returned at my request and changed all the locks back to my original keys. We carried my belongings back into the house while the news crews filmed everything. Catherine's rose garden looked perfect in the evening light. By 10 p.m., the story had gone national. Stanford janitor's hidden wealth revealed after daughter-in-law's live-stream eviction was trending on Twitter. Victoria's Instagram account had been deactivated after receiving thousands of angry comments. Megacorp's stock price dropped 2.3% in after-hours trading as investors reacted to the canceled acquisition and the negative publicity. But the real consequence for Victoria was still coming. The next morning, as she posted bail and tried to salvage her reputation, she discovered that word had spread throughout Silicon Valley's tight-knit community. Her LinkedIn was flooded with connection requests from reporters and trolls. Her professional network was in shambles. 3 tech companies rescinded job offers they'd been considering making. 2 venture capital firms removed her from their contact lists. Her MBA program's alumni newsletter dropped her from their success stories section. The industry that had once celebrated her ambition now viewed her as a cautionary tale about privilege, arrogance, and the dangers of judging people by their appearance. Victoria Sterling had spent years building her reputation as a rising star in corporate acquisitions. In one 2-hour live stream, she'd turned herself into the most infamous VP in Silicon Valley history, and it was all completely self-inflicted. Justice, as I'd learned over 72 years, isn't always immediate, but it's always inevitable. The story exploded across national media within 48 hours. Good Morning America led with hidden millionaire, Stanford janitor reveals secret investment empire after live stream eviction. The Washington Post ran an analysis piece titled, "When Privilege Meets Reality, a Silicon Valley Cautionary Tale." Forbes published an interview request that I politely declined. But the real fallout was happening in Silicon Valley's professional ecosystem, where reputation matters more than almost anything else. Victoria's arrest photos appeared on TMZ. Her mugshot became a meme on Reddit, usually paired with captions about karma and judging books by their covers. TikTok users created reaction videos to her original live stream with millions of views and comments like, "This is what entitlement looks like," and "The audacity is breathtaking." By Friday, 3 days after the incident, Victoria had become unemployable in tech. Her professional reputation was destroyed not just by what she'd done, but by how thoroughly she'd documented her own downfall. "It's unprecedented," said a venture capitalist who agreed to speak anonymously to TechCrunch. "We've seen executives make bad decisions before, but Victoria Sterling live-streamed herself, committing multiple felonies while humiliating a major investor. No company will touch her now." Megacorp moved quickly to distance themselves from the scandal. They issued a public statement. "Megacorp Industries does not condone discrimination, harassment, or illegal behavior of any kind. Ms. Sterling's actions were contrary to our company values and resulted in immediate termination." They also announced a new Dignity and Respect initiative in partnership with Stanford University, with a $50,000 donation to support janitor and maintenance worker education programs. They made sure to mention it was being done in honor of longtime Stanford employee Leopold Thornton. Edison Caldwell personally called me to apologize. "Leopold, I'm embarrassed that someone from our company treated you this way. It doesn't represent who we are." "I know that, Edison. Victoria's actions reflect on Victoria, not on you. Still, I want to make this right. What can I do?" "Keep being the kind of leader who stands up for people who can't defend themselves," I said. "That's what you learned in my basement all those years ago, and it served you well." The legal consequences were swift and severe. Victoria was charged with 5 felonies: illegal entry, attempted theft, elder abuse, fraud, and harassment. Her lawyers tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the district attorney refused. "This case has generated significant public interest," the prosecutor explained to reporters. "Miss Sterling's actions were premeditated, documented, and caused substantial harm to the victim. We intend to pursue the full extent of the law." Victoria's bail was set at $50,000. Her legal fees were estimated at over $100,000 for a proper defense. Her savings, depleted by months of unemployment and legal costs, forced her to sell her Tesla and move back in with her parents in Ohio. The social media aftermath was relentless. Victoria's LinkedIn profile, once showcasing her VP title and Stanford MBA, now generated mockery whenever someone searched her name. Her Twitter account was flooded with replies every time she posted. Her Instagram, where the original live stream occurred, had to be deleted entirely. Dating became impossible. Her name was too recognizable, her story too viral. Victoria Sterling was now synonymous with entitlement and poor judgment across multiple social media platforms. But perhaps the most devastating consequence was professional. Silicon Valley operates on trust, relationships, and reputation. Victoria had destroyed all 3 in a single afternoon. A month after the incident, she applied for a marketing position at a small startup in Cleveland. During the video interview, the CEO said, "Aren't you the woman from the janitor video?" Victoria hung up without answering. Meanwhile, my life had taken an unexpectedly positive turn. Stanford honored me with their first ever Community Impact Award for my 3 decades of mentoring and investing in student entrepreneurs. The ceremony was held in the same auditorium where I'd cleaned floors for 45 years. 23 former students attended, representing companies worth a combined $450 million. They each spoke about how my early investment had changed their lives, not just financially, but personally. "Leopold taught us that true wealth comes from lifting others up," said Zoe Williams, founder of Green Tech Innovations. "He never asked for recognition. He just believed in us when no one else would." The local media coverage was overwhelmingly positive. The San Jose Mercury News ran a feature story titled, "The Janitor Who Built Silicon Valley, One Startup at a Time." It included interviews with former students who described my basement tutoring sessions and my modest lifestyle despite my growing wealth. "He drove the same Ford pickup for 20 years, one student remembered. He'd invest $50,000 in our company, then eat a packed lunch from a paper bag. He never forgot where he came from." Victoria, watching from her parents' house in Ohio, saw every article. Each story was another reminder of the opportunities she'd destroyed and the respect she'd forfeited. 6 months later, she was working at a small accounting firm in Akron, making $38,000 a year. Her colleagues didn't know her story, but they could sense something broken in her confidence. She'd gone from Silicon Valley rising star to cautionary tale, from $400,000 salary to entry-level bookkeeper. The woman who had once judged my worth by my uniform now wore a polyester vest with a name tag to work every day. Sometimes justice takes decades. Sometimes it takes 2 hours in a live stream. 1 year later, I was still mopping floors at Stanford University. Some people asked why I didn't retire, given my investment portfolio. The answer was simple. I loved my work. I loved the students, the conversations, the daily purpose. Money had never been about escaping my life. It had been about enhancing other people's lives. Victoria's criminal trial concluded with a plea agreement. She received 2 years probation, 500 hours of community service, and was ordered to pay $37,000 in restitution for legal fees and damages. She also had to write a formal letter of apology, which she never sent. Declan and I rebuilt our relationship slowly. Without Victoria's influence, he remembered who he used to be, the kind man Catherine and I had raised. He moved back into the house for 6 months while his divorce was finalized, and we spent evenings in Catherine's garden, talking about everything we'd missed during the years when walking on eggshells had become our normal. "I'm sorry I didn't defend you," he said one evening as we watered the roses. "You were in an impossible situation," I replied. "Marriage is complicated. Family is complicated. What matters is that we found our way back to each other." The house felt peaceful again. I kept my investment documents in Catherine's old jewelry box on the mantelpiece, no longer hidden but not displayed either. Wealth, I'd learned, was most powerful when it remained quiet until the moment it needed to speak. My approach to investing hadn't changed. I still funded 2 or 3 startups each year, still met with young entrepreneurs in coffee shops and basement workshops. But now they came to me through Stanford's official mentorship program rather than informal word of mouth. The difference was respect. Students listened more carefully, took better notes, asked deeper questions. They understood that the man in the blue uniform had something valuable to teach beyond just financial backing. Victoria's story became a case study in several business schools, a cautionary tale about privilege, assumptions, and the dangers of confusing net worth with human worth. I was invited to speak at Stanford's business school about it, but I declined. She'd paid enough for her mistakes. 3 months ago, I received an unexpected letter. The return address was Akron, Ohio. Inside was a handwritten note from Victoria. "Leopold," it read, "I know this doesn't fix anything, but I wanted you to know that I understand now what I destroyed. Not just my career or my marriage, but something more important, my capacity to see people as they really are. I spent so long focusing on appearances that I forgot to look for character. You had both wealth and character. I had neither. I'm sorry for the pain I caused you and Declan. I'm sorry for disrespecting Catherine's memory. And I'm sorry it took losing everything for me to learn what you tried to teach me through your example. Victoria." I showed the letter to Declan. He read it twice, then handed it back. "What do you think?" he asked it. "I think people can change," I said. "It just usually requires consequences first." I wrote back. Not forgiveness. She hadn't earned that yet, but acknowledgement. Sometimes that's the first step toward redemption. These days, when young entrepreneurs ask me for advice, I tell them what I learned from 45 years of honest work and 30 years of quiet investing. Your wealth is never as important as your character. Your job title is never as valuable as your integrity. And your public image is never as powerful as your private actions. Most importantly, I tell them this: respect isn't something you demand based on your achievements. It's something you earn through how you treat people who can't advance your career. If you found this story meaningful, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. And let me know in the comments, have you ever been underestimated because of how you looked or what you did for work? Sometimes the quietest people are simply choosing their moment to speak.